Welcome to This Explainer. Have you ever felt this, literal tug of war going on inside your head when you sit down to work? One side of your brain is screaming at you to focus, while the other is practically begging you to just open a new tab and watch a video. Well, today we're unpacking the actual neuroscience behind why your brain does this, and more importantly, exactly how we can fix it. I want you to imagine a little hand-drawn stickman staring at his desk. He's got a blank notebook in front of him, and he knows he has a massive project due tomorrow. He even knows exactly what he needs to write. But he is completely paralyzed. He literally cannot bring himself to pick up the pen. Why can't he just start? Look, we've all been this stickman, right? Society loves to tell us it's because we lack willpower. But neuroscience? Neuroscience tells a completely different story. Okay, let's dive into this and just forcefully debunk a huge myth right off the bat. Procrastination is not a moral failing. It's not laziness, and it is definitely not poor time management. The research clearly shows that procrastination is a neurological glitch. It's a biological stress response happening deep inside the physical architecture of your brain. Which brings us to our first section, the great laziness myth, where we reframe this from time management to emotional regulation. Think about your own habits for a second. When our little stick man avoids his notebook, he isn't actually avoiding the physical work of writing. No, he's avoiding the negative emotions attached to that work. Maybe it's fear of failure, maybe it's just pure boredom, or maybe it's the anxiety of not knowing where to begin. Procrastination is literally defined as the voluntary delay of a task due to a failure in emotional self-regulation. Basically, your brain is prioritizing short-term emotional comfort right now over your long-term goals for the future. So let's move to section 2, your brain at war, and meet the combatants. On one side of this internal battlefield, you have your limbic system. Think of this as your brain's emotional center. It's incredibly fast, it runs on autopilot, it seeks immediate pleasure, and it desperately wants to avoid pain. Now, on the other side, you've got the prefrontal cortex. This is the rational, logical planner that regulates self-control. But here's the catch. The prefrontal cortex requires a massive amount of energy, and it gets exhausted super easily. So when you procrastinate, your frantic, emotion-driven limbic system is simply overpowering your logical but totally exhausted prefrontal cortex. That leads us right into section 3, the amygdala threat response, and why simple tasks can feel like actual danger. Deep inside that limbic system is a tiny structure called the amygdala. It's your brain's ultimate threat detection center. When our stickman looks at a difficult or ambiguous task, his amygdala literally detects a psychological threat. It could be the threat of being judged or the fear of not being good enough. So what happens? The amygdala sounds the alarm. It triggers intense anxiety and causes an amygdala hijack, which completely overrides the prefrontal cortex's ability to plan and forces your brain into immediate avoidance mode. It's like a 3-step journey to doom scrolling. First, the task is perceived as a threat. Second, the amygdala triggers a massive wave of anxiety. And third, the brain frantically searches for a way to turn that anxiety off. And how does it do that? By seeking instant dopamine relief. This is the exact moment our stickman pushes away from that scary, anxiety-inducing notebook and reaches for his phone to check social media. The phone gives him a cheap, fast dopamine hit that instantly soothes his panicked limbic system. Now, this all ties into a psychological concept called temporal discounting. It's our tendency to heavily devalue rewards that are far off in the future. Because the reward for finishing the project, getting an A or getting a promotion, is days or weeks away, your brain just massively discounts its value. Faced with the choice between a distant, abstract reward and the immediate, guaranteed dopamine hit of watching a funny video right now, your limbic system is going to choose the video almost every single time. Now, what's really fascinating here is how different fears trigger completely different neural avoidance patterns. Take arousal procrastination. This is where people wait until the absolute last minute because their brain literally needs the extreme adrenaline and dopamine of a looming deadline just to cure their boredom and initiate action. Then you have avoidant procrastination, which is a pure amygdala threat response driven by the fear of failure. And my personal favorite, productive procrastination. This is where your brain substitutes rewards by making you, say, deep clean your entire kitchen just to avoid the high-stress task you actually need to be doing. Let's look at section 4, the price of delay, and the actual physical toll this takes on your brain. Did you know that habitual procrastinators report stress levels that are 24% higher than average? 24%. Why? Well, because while you might get a temporary hit of relief when you avoid a task, the deadline is still looming in the background. It creates this state of chronic, low-level panic, resulting in constant drip, drip, drip spikes of cortisol, your body's primary stress hormone. And over time, those continuous cortisol spikes cause some serious damage. Chronic procrastination elevates your cardiovascular risk, and it severely impairs your hippocampus, the part of your brain responsible for consolidating memories. But honestly, the most shocking finding? Constantly giving in to your limbic system's demands actually reduces the volume of gray matter in your prefrontal cortex. You heard that right. Chronic procrastination physically shrinks the exact part of your brain that you need to exert self-control and stop procrastinating in the first place. Okay, so how do we fix it? Section 5. How to hack your brain and bypass that threat response. I know that last part sounded incredibly bleak, but thanks to neuroplasticity, we can absolutely rewire these circuits. 41%. That number represents a massive breakthrough. Neurological studies have demonstrated that using structured plans, specifically what psychologists call implementation intentions, can reduce task onset amygdala activation by a staggering 41%. So simply by structuring your approach, you can literally turn down the volume on your brain's threat alarm by almost half. So the absolutely crucial point here is how you start. You have to break the task down into microscopic steps. If the task is write a 10-page report, your amygdala treats that as a massive, overwhelming threat. But if the task is open a Word document and write one single sentence, well, the threat level drops to basically 0. You just commit to 5 minutes of effort. This completely sneaks past the amygdala's threat alarm, which allows your rational prefrontal cortex to safely engage. And once you start, the brain actually releases these little microdoses of dopamine that build momentum, making it so much easier to keep going. Here are 3 practical hacks you can use right now to offload all that cognitive effort and avoid decision fatigue. First up, implementation intentions. This is just if-then planning. For example, if it is 8 a.m., then I will open my laptop. Super simple. Second is temptation bundling. This is where you pair a high dopamine want with a low dopamine need, like saying you can only drink your absolute favorite coffee while you're answering emails. And third, habit stacking. Attach a new habit you want to build directly onto an existing automatic routine you already do every single day. I want to leave you with this really powerful insight from the clinical research on this topic. It says, the clients who overcome procrastination are not the ones who develop more discipline. They are the ones who understand which neural system is blocking initiation. Please internalize this. Overcoming your delay isn't about harsh willpower, and it definitely isn't about punishing yourself. It's simply about outsmarting your own neurobiology. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I have a quick challenge for you. Think about that one big, intimidating task you've been putting off. Got it? Okay, now bypass your amygdala right this second. What is the absolute smallest, most microscopic, non-threatening step you can take toward that goal today? Don't plan the whole project, just figure out that one tiny step and go do it right now. What are you waiting for? Thank you so much for learning with me today, and I'll see you in the next explainer.